Chazara from the beginning. Okay, so we'll jump right in. We'll give a short hakdama. Just getting started. We're holding Eis Vav of the Maimer Hayu Yomom Tovim Nisal Chamisha Asar B'Av. It's in Melukat Daled. It's from Tafshin Mem Zayin. We're holding page Shin on Aleph. So,
What page?
Page Shin on Aleph. So just a few points from earlier in the Maimer. It's like this. We'll be able to continue the Maimer. And we're already a good week into Elul, almost. So we're still continuing for Chamisha Asar B'Av, but the Nekuda, of course, applies always, and can still give us highest to do our Aveda now. So Chamisha Asar B'Av, it says that Hayu Yomom Tovim Nisal Chamisha Asar B'Av K'Yom Kippurim. The greatest Yomim Tovim by the Yidden were Chamisha Asar B'Av and Yom Kippur. And the Rebbe Rashab asks, what was the big Yom Tov? So he gives an explanation. He says that on Chamisha Asar B'Av, on Tisha B'Av, you have a tremendous downfall, the downfall of the Churban. And so too, 4 other terrible Gzeiros that occurred to the Yidden. Comes Chamisha Asar B'Av, so then you have the Shleimus Halavana, which is the Shleimus of the Yidden. So you have the ultimate Aliyah, because the Aliyah that comes after the downfall is much greater than a regular Aliyah. So that's the word of the Rebbe Rashab in his Maimer, that what's the great deal about Chamisha Asar B'Av until to the point that we say Hayu Yomom Tovim Yisrael Chamisha Asar B'Av, that it's an Aliyah that came after a Yerida. The Rebbe Rashab says this word. The Rebbe Rashab also connects Chamisha Asar B'Av to the Beis Hamikdash. Says the connection is there before because the Yerida of Tisha B'Av is the Churban of the Beis Hamikdash, and he says that on Chamisha Asar B'Av you have a revelation of. You have a revelation, but we're just going to start a few pages after. You have a revelation, you have a revelation of the Beis Hamikdash. Yeah. So on Chamisha Asar B'Av, it's connected to the Beis Hamikdash, and the Rebbe Rashab shows a few ways the way Chamisha Asar in general is connected to the Beis Hamikdash, because Me'emu Yi Hashem Echad Shmai Echad. So he says Yi as 2 times 15. Chamisha Asar is 15, of course. And he also says that there's the union of Hamshachas Atik into Malchus Chomesh Tzamel. If you take the 500 and you bring it into the 15, which is the Hamshach of Atik into Avaim or into Zun, different Piroshim. So the Rebbe Rashab explains that Chamisha Asar B'Av is very connected to the Gula HaSidim. Okay, so those are 2 explanations that we learn from the Rebbe Rashab. One is that it's a Yerida Tzerech Aliyah, and that's why it's the greatest Yom Tov. And the second thing is that this day of Chamisha Asar B'Av is particularly connected to the Beis Hamikdash HaShlishi. In other words, on Chamisha Asar B'Av, you have the Aliyah that came after the Churban of Tisha B'Av. And now the Rebbe says a new word, L'chura. The Pashtus, it's a new word from the Rebbe. He says that Chamisha Asar B'Av is also an inyan of Giluyim. In other words, Chamisha Asar B'Av is the day on which things that were hidden become revealed. It says, for example, with the moon on the 15th day of the month is whole. But we all know that the moon is always there completely. It's just that it's not shining, but it's always there. So what's the Maila of Chamisha Asar B'Av? That you can see the whole moon that was always there. Similarly, the Rebbe says that
you guaranteed a non-cloudy night.
You guarantee the
So the moon is always there.
The moon is always there, and the cloudiness is maybe having a Seichem Avdim that sometimes get into the way. But the Nakuda is, the truth is that on Chamisha Asar B'Av, the moon is always completely revealed. Then you also have the idea of that on Tisha B'Av was the day of the Gzeira, that the Yidden who were in the day Hamidbar will all pass away without going into Eretz Yisrael. And Chamisha Asar B'Av was the day that they found out that they stopped dying. In other words, no one else is going to be passing away. And that was actually the first event of Chamisha Asar B'Av. So the Rebbe says in this story also, Chamisha Asar B'Av, if we look at it, it's actually a story of revealing that which was hidden before. Why? Because there was a Gzeira of 39 years. And they finished passing away at the end of the complete year, which was on Tisha B'Av. It's just that they didn't realize on Tisha B'Av that the Gzeira is over. And that's why they would, throughout all the years, they would dig a grave and they would lay in it, and the next day they wouldn't wake up. Everybody would pass away. Whoever turned 40 years old on that day would pass away. 60 would pass away in one day. So came that year, And they all did the same thing. Whoever was turning 60 years old, they dug a grave and they lay down in the grave. Came the morning, they woke up.
Shows that the Pesach was over.
No, they didn't think so. Which, like we mentioned last time we learned this, it's a good point to think about psychologically. In other words, not chas v'sholom to bring psychology into alignment, but to first understand psychology, the literal taich of psychology in Greek apparently is chachmas hanefesh, understanding how the soul works, how a human
The
being,
psyche, yeah.
the psyche is zayin azeh. But it's important to know, Pashat, how we work. And how we work is we get so used to things being bad that when somebody comes and says, Rabbi Say, it's over. Things are in. You can see with your own eyes, you woke up. You woke up, you got out of the grave. Say, no.
We say.
You say, it must have been that today wasn't Tisha B'Av. Tomorrow they got back into their grave again, and they continue doing it for 6 more days or 7 more days.
That stated that the Gears man says, no.
Correct.
Nobody will.
Moshe Rabbeinu, and we have a precedent. Moshe Rabbeinu came and said that the Eibishter is taking us out of Galus. Yeah, they didn't come to him with complaints and say, what? And not only that, they even came to him with complaints that you made things worse for us. This is just the way we are. And like Bavram said, then Tavshin and Aleph, Rebbe said, that's it, Mashiach is here. The process of Geula is starting. We just have to open up our eyes and see how Pashat, it's not something in the future. The process.
They had the stickers, and I bought one for my door. You guys want to somehow it fell off because of painting. I went back. No, we don't have them no more. They print them some more. No,
Correct.
They didn't want to print them anymore.
Correct. And yeah, the whole day we daven for help, and finally the help comes, and we say, no, this can't be it. It can't be, right? I mean, look, to be Melamed Chus on Yidden, yeah, the Helim that we're living in now after Gimel Tammuz is tremendous. But there's also an element in it to think about it that the Rebbe said, and the words of tzaddikim are chayim v'kayamim, they live it eternally. And like the Rebbe said, he's saying it as a nevuah. This the Rebbe said clearly, and the Rebbe was magia the sicha, so there should be no mistake that the Rebbe meant to say exactly that. He's saying it as a nevuah, and the words of a nevuah, l'teva, can never go back. So we have 2 options. We could either accept what Elam Haza is telling us and say, well, whatever was happening in the Nalef Nun Beis was an Eis Ratzin, and it didn't pan out, just like all the other times where there was an Eis Ratzin for the Gula and it didn't pan out. Or we could say, no, whatever happened in Nun Gimel Nun Daled, the question is on that. And whatever. Yeah.
So the next day was the Karnat's rights.
Mama Shazay.
That you see that you have 2 ways of the world. You can live which world you want.
Yeah, correct. And now we could either.
That's psychology.
That's psychology. There you go. So either, and the same thing until today. It's the Helim's going on for how many years? I don't know. I'm not from those that count the years, but it's going on for long enough. And there's only 2 options to choose from. You can either choose and say, I'm sticking with what the Rebbe told us clearly, and the Rebbe encouraged us and pushed us, or you could say that chas v'sholom, that was incorrect. Those are the only options you have. And this is just another instance in our long history of getting a pseudo of Geula. Why did the Yidden come to Moshe Rabbeinu and complain to him? Right? They came to him and complained to him because things got worse.
Yeah.
And not only that, they say, I believe it says that Moshe Rabbeinu wasn't seen for a half a year. He left. I can't remember exactly what it is. So he comes and says the Geula is coming. They're just taking out of Golos. I heard your cries, and what happens? Things get worse. And it wasn't for a day or 2. I believe it was for a half a year. And Moshe Rabbeinu, I believe they didn't see either. So the same thing over here. Here the Rebbe says that the process of Geula started. For example, the Rebbe says Matzasi David Avdi B'Shem and Kachim Mishaftu, which was the capital they were saying in the Nalef. And the Rebbe says that this pasuk means, right, the types of the pasuk is that I found David, my servant, and I anointed him with my holy oil. So the Rebbe says that this pasuk is a reference to the fact that Melech HaMashiach was appointed already. That Melech HaMashiach was appointed, and that happened in the Nalef. Whatever happened afterwards doesn't matter. The appointment of Mashiach, the anointing of Mashiach, occurred in the Nalef. And the Rebbe says that the process of Geula is already starting to show its impact on the world. We're just coming now from Shaftim, where was it Shaftim or Mishpatim? Never spoke what was going on in the UN. But either way, the Rebbe said that this, that the leaders of the two superpowers, the United States and the USSR, at the time I believe it was still the USSR, are coming together. Are coming together and announcing world peace, and they're making agreements to stop fighting and wars. David says this is an outcome of the influence that Mashiach is having on the world. In other words, it's a process that's already in motion. So, Narvas, if when Moshe Rabbeinu came to the Yidden, what was, like we'll soon see, was only the Gula from Mitzrayim, which was compared to the Gula from Mashiach, it's much smaller. So over there, the Nisayan was for a half a year or for whatever it was. Shenkin in the Gula Hasid, the Nisayan has to be ready for a few decades. But our job is not to make the same mistake. And when the Eibishter tells us through his Navi, he tells us that Mashiach is here and he's coming now, and we just have to open up our eyes and we have to connect with it and we have to start living with it. Not only that, we have to start demanding it and asking for it and living like Pasha we can't without it. So we have to know that it's going to come. Anyways, that was a long aside. But getting back to the Nakuda of the Maimed over here. So on Tisha B'Av, so they went in and they got up and they said it can't be. It's probably not Tisha B'Av. We probably got the date of the month wrong. Until finally came the 15th day of the month, the moon was complete. It was a complete circle. It's hard for me to understand how they could have made a mistake between Tisha B'Av. I mean, the moon is so much more complete. But I guess it was in degrees of incompleteness. Like when you see a whole circle, a circle is a circle. When it's not a circle, you could say, okay, how much off of it? I don't know the person in Pshutim Shel Yonim, but either way, it was only in Chamish Asar B'Av that they understood.
By 9th of Av, you probably got much 3/4 of a moon.
Okay, 3/4 to a whole is quite different.
That's what I'm saying. There's a chiluk. Yeah.
There's a chiluk, yeah. So again, we see that what happened on Chamish Asar B'Av, we revealed something which was already true from before. We revealed what was true on Tisha B'Av already. That on Tisha B'Av the Gzeira was over. And the same thing okay, so Ebazei asks the Rebbe, what's the big deal of Chamish Asar B'Av? If everything that happens in Chamish Asar B'Av was already existing before, it's just that now it's revealed. So what's the big deal that now it's revealed? Why is it Hayu Yomom Tovim B'Yisrael Chamish Asar B'Av? So let's see. I'm not sure I understood the answer right, but we'll go weiter. Okay, so then in Hay, last thing before we start in the insight involved, in Hay, the Rebbe says that actually the Beis Hamikdash HaShlishi itself is also something that started earlier, and when Mashiach is going to come, we're merely going to be revealing what existed earlier. The Rebbe says in two ways. The first way is that on Tisha B'Av, Mashiach was already born, so on the same day of the Churban, you already had this beginning of the process of the Geula, though in a very hidden way. It was unlike now where it's not in a hidden way. It was in a very hidden way. It was only the birth of Mashiach, of Melech HaMashiach. So we see that also when it comes to the Geula HaSiddah, it's actually a revelation of what started much earlier already on the day of Tisha B'Av. The Rebbe says, and not only that, you also see that it says in the Medrash that the Eibishter came in the month of Av and destroyed the Beis Hamikdash so that he should be able to build the third Beis Hamikdash. And the Rebbe explains that if this intention of the Eibishter with destroying the second Beis Hamikdash was revealed at the time, so then a Churban never would have come out of it, because it would have been a Teva Nidav and Nigla, and the second Beis Hamikdash would have been destroyed, and therefore the third Beis Hamikdash never could have been built. So that intention for goodness had to be completely concealed, and it can only be revealed the moment after the Churban, and therefore that's when Mashiach was born. So we see that the process already started even before the Churban. Even before the Churban, we already had an inyan of the Haskalah of the Binyan Beis Hamikdash HaShlishi. Okay, and with that, that's a hakdama, that's an introduction to help us understand what the greatness of Chamish Asar B'Av is. So he says like this: Vav page Shinun Aleph Yeshleimar Tatam Al Zashatziv Vasili Mikdash Shutziv L'Deiris Lasis Bais LaShem. The reason that the commandment that we have, which we'll immediately be able to fulfill with the coming of Mashiach, to build a Beis HaMikdash for the Eibishter, which this includes the Tzivi al Kol Batei Mikdashes, the commandment on all the Batei Mikdashes that we're going to build, including the third Beis HaMikdash. Nemar Begilu B'Negei L'Asiyas HaMishkan was said in a revealed way. What's the pasuk talking about when it says Vasuli Mikdash? It's talking about the Mishkan. Because in the Mishkan, you actually already had included in a hidden way, Even the Beis Hamikdash, which was a permanent residence, unlike the Mishkan, which traveled, was taken down and put up wherever they went. It wasn't permanent. So that was also included. V'gam Beis Hamikdash Delas Yisrael Ba'al Yitzon, and including also the third Beis Hamikdash, which is a Beis Hamikdash that's not only it's permanently built as a structure which doesn't move, but it will never be destroyed either, which is that is the Union Akvis, the primary union of permanence, something that will never be destroyed, was also included in the commandment to build the Mishkan. Only what? In the Mishkan, in that commandment, the first and second Beis Hamikdash, and certainly the third Beis Hamikdash were completely concealed in that tzivah of the Eibishter. And it's only revealed later. And this is also a similar concept we find when you get to the Geulis, when you get to the redemptions that you didn't have from the Goliaths, from the exiles. It's a famous part discussed a lot in Chassidus, that in the Geula of Yetzias Mitzrayim, you already had the opening of the channel, and not only the opening of the channel, but you already had included in the Geula from Mitzrayim all of the Geulas. Keilel Gama Geula Hasid.
What's the type of
So Bal Yitzon, Bal Yitzon, I still don't know. I still didn't check up the types of that word, but the continuation of the pasuk is Bal Yisa Yisidosav Lenetzach. Its stakes, its anchors will never be pulled up. In other words, it's something that will be permanent. It's permanent. Yeah, Bal Yitzon, I'm not sure, but it's not only fixed, but also will not be destroyed. Will never be taken down. So when you get to all of the Geulis, it's explained in Chassidus that they're all included in the Geula from Mitzrayim, including the Geula of Mashiach. But just in order to reveal the Beis Hamikdash Shlishi, and in order to reveal the Geula Shlishis, you have to have first Dafke, the Aveda that comes in the time of Golus, which this is like the Aveda of Tshuva. And therefore, during the Geula of Mitzrayim, before we had the Aveda that comes in the time of Golus, the Aveda of Tshuva, the Geula HaSidah was hidden in it. It couldn't come to full fruition or to any fruition. It was just there in a hidden way. The Kivin should be and it couldn't happen during the time of Yitzias Mitzrayim, because then the Yidden were in the Medega of a Tzaddik. And for the Geula HaSidah, we have to have Dafka the Aveda in the time of Golus, which is that Aveda of Tshuva. In the Geula HaSidah, Shekolol Bagula Yitzias Mitzrayim, Hayaz Behelim. So therefore, the ultimate redemption of Mashiach Tzidkenu, which was included in the redemption from Mitzrayim, remained in a concealed way. So it's the same thing, like the Rebbe said when you get to the Beis Hamikdash, that when the Eibishter destroyed the second Beis Hamikdash, it was only in order to build the third Beis Hamikdash, but nevertheless, that plan, that intention had to be hidden so that it doesn't get in the way of the Aveda that would be needed through the destruction of the second Beis Hamikdash. And now finally, and with this, we can understand why in the Mishkan itself, we already had this idea of 15 amas on either side of the opening of the courtyard of the Mishkan, which we explained before, is that Hamshache of Atik into Yudke, into Avah, into Chachma and Binah, even though the ultimate and the true Hamshache of Atik into Chachma and Binah, in other words, going from the highest levels all the way down into Ishtal Shulas. That's going to be when the Beis Hamikdash Shlishi is built, not in the Mishkan. But nevertheless, we already find this idea in the 15, which is the Gematria of 1500, because Chamesh Seyama is 15, and Kasef is 500. I'm sorry, 515. So you had it already in the Mishkan, because everything is really included earlier. It just needs to be revealed. It just needs to be revealed. So the Rebbe is saying that the whole idea of Chamisha Asar B'Av is the meaning of revealing something which was hidden, and that's actually a theme that carries over through the Binyan Beis Hamikdash Shlishi is also the same story. The Geula HaSidah is also the same story. That all of these things already really started before. The potential for it and the intention in it and the beginning of it was already before. It was just under extreme concealment. Ad kedei kach that in a revealed sense, you saw the opposite. You saw Churban and you saw Golus. And the Aveda is to reveal those things which are hidden. So even though it was already included in the Mishkan, nevertheless, The Yom Tov of Chamisha Asar B'Av, when we bring it out in a revealed way, is the greatest Yom Tov. Ki lifnei Chet HaMeraglim, before the Chet HaMeraglim, in other words, when the Mishkan was built before the Chet HaMeraglim, since there was no sin. So therefore in Seder, Hishtalshalos, there's no reason and there's no cause for the destruction of the Beis HaMikdash. And therefore you also can't have the building of the third Beis HaMikdash, because the second Beis HaMikdash is still there. So it was in an absolute concealment. So over here, that really says a very deep word. He's restating what he says before, but he explains it. He says, in Seder Hishtalshalos, everything goes according to an order. Taka l'mayla Seder Hishtalshalos, the Eibishter's kavana was that there should be a revelation of the third Beis HaMikdash, a revelation of the Gula Mitzvah Hashlema. That was always there. But that couldn't come into Seder Hishtalshalos. It couldn't come into Seder Hishtalshalos. And therefore, this union of Chamesh Yisayama Kleim Lakasif, which is the Hamshacha of Atik, what's beyond Hishtalshalos, into Hishtalshalos, couldn't really happen. It was there in a hidden way. It couldn't really be expressed and come out in actuality. Why? Because in Seder Hishtalshalos, there's an order to things. Everything has to make sense. You can't tell me that I have a plan over there. Everything comes out in an actualized way. In Seder Hishtalshalos, there's no Aveda, there's no punishment. There was no Chet HaMeraglim, there's no Churban Beis HaMikdash. The Eiris are flowing freely, unhindered. There's no pgamim, there's no blemishes, there's no damage done. So there's no Churban. And if there's no Churban, you also don't have a Geula. And that's why at that time, when the Mishkan was built and when you had Chamesh Se'ama Kleim Lakasif, even though you already had this idea of Hamshachas Atik into Hishtalshalos, but it couldn't come out yet in a revealed way. And that's why there was nothing great about it, and that's why it wasn't celebrated. It was Dafka after the Chet HaMeraglim, when we had the first Yom Tov of Chamisha Asar B'Av, which this is a Yom Tov that comes after there was already the beginnings of the Beis HaMikdash, like the Rebbe is going to explain in a moment. So then it became a tremendous Yom Tov, because now we're already starting to reveal B'Poel Mamish these tremendous Giluyim of Chamesh Se'ama Kleim Lakasif, which is the tremendous Giluyim of Atik, which is the Giluyim of the Beis HaMikdash Talasik, and the Giluyim of the Gula HaSiddur. That was going to talk it out. After the Chet of the Meraglim, which that is when the Gzeira was decreed on that generation, that they won't enter into the Beis HaMikdash, into Eretz Yisrael. The Gamas Cholasin in the Churban Beis HaMikdash, and that was also the beginning of the destruction of the Beis HaMikdash. Because that's when the Eibishter all of the Machshavte to destroy the Beis HaMikdash. Because really, like the Rebbe keeps emphasizing, what started then? That's when the drawing down of the Eibishter's intention with the building of the third Beis HaMikdash started coming down, but an eifin of Machshava. Not an eifin of Dibur, and certainly not an eifin of action, but that's when the Machshava of the Eibishter started coming down. In other words, from beyond Machshava, it came down into Machshava. So from the 15th, on this 15th day of the month of every year, beginning from the first positive event which occurred on Chamisha Asar B'Av, which is the day that the people in the Midwest stopped dying, and certainly after the Churban of the Beis HaMikdash. We're after the ultimate Yeridah of Tisha B'Av, of the Churban of the Beis HaMikdash. So therefore, Chamisha Asar B'Av represents not only the end of the dying of the generation of the Midbar, but it represents, like the Rebbe Rashab said, the Gili of the Mikdash Telasid Lavit. So now we have Gili HaPnimis the Chamesh Se'ama Kleim Lakasif Shebechatana Mishkan. So only now do we have the revelation of the hidden and the inner inyan and revelation of Chamesh Se'ama Kleim Lakasif, of 15 amas on either side of the Mishkan, like he said, Shein Yonim Hu Amshachas Atik B'Yudke V'Aldeze Gamba Malchus, which is drawing down Atik, which is lights that in today's day and age, before the Gul, even in the times of the Beis HaMikdash, could never be drawn down into this world, never mind into Yudke, but even into Malchus, which is already starting to come down into Biyah, into our world. And that's the Inyan of Oil Bal Yitzon, a permanent Beis HaMikdash Shlishi, Shein Shayach B'Yehefsik. Of the third Beis HaMikdash, which in the third Beis HaMikdash, not only that it won't be destroyed, but it's even impossible for it to be destroyed, like we discussed earlier in the Maimed. So the first thing that the Rebbe says is, what's the big Yom Tov of Chamisha Asar B'Av? He says, Taka, it's true that all we're doing is, so to speak, merely revealing what was there before. But the Rebbe says it's not just like a regular revelation of something that was there and it was already a done job. the Nakuda of the Geula and the Beis Hamikdash Shlishi that was there before was in a state that it could never ever actually happen. Because it was before the ending of Chet, it was before the destruction of the second Beis Hamikdash, and therefore we can never ever have the Geula HaMitzvah Shlema. Dafka through the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash, and Dafka through the Chet HaMeraglim, now we can have the Geula HaMitzvah Shlema. When do we see that that's the story? When do we see that those terrible Yeridus were actually the beginning and the enablers of the Aliyah? That we see on Chamisha Asar B'Av. So Chamisha Asar B'Av, the greatness of the Yom Tiv, is actually that we can actually have that thing. Without Chamisha Asar B'Av, we would just remain in a state of either before the Galus, which would never be the Geula Mitzvah Shlema, or just in a state of Galus. Chamisha Asar B'Av comes and says that actually from the time of the Churban, we're already starting to build the third Beis Hamikdash. And we're already starting to prepare ourselves for the Geula Mitzvah Shlema. And then when Mashiach will come, I'm not sure if they ever saying when Mashiach will come or on Chamisha Asar B'Av, we'll also see the inner intent of the tragedy, the crying of Tisha B'Av, Vayivka Ha'am B'Layla Hahu, when the Yidden, after they heard from the Meraglim that Eretz Yisrael is a terrible place, Eretz Acheles Yeshvel, and we'll never be able to conquer it, so they cried, which was a big Aveda, and therefore Shaldeza Nikva B'Chir L'Deis, which that caused that there's crying until today, because of that is why we went into Galus. But when Mashiach is going to come, we're going to realize, or it's going to be revealed, that this terrible tragedy, that this was only in order that we should be able to reach to the crying in a positive sense that we're going to have when Mashiach will come. Like it says, we will return to Yerushalayim crying. What's the crying when we're returning to Yerushalayim with the Geula Mitzvah Shlema? It's a b'chia shel simcha. It's tears of joy. Since these are very, very high levels that are being revealed, so why do you cry? So he says, what it says when you get to Rabbi Akiva, then when he was able to grasp the secrets of the Torah, which are implanted, so to speak, which are within Shir HaShirim, which Shir HaShirim in a revealed sense, it's all Mishalim of the love between a husband and a wife. When Rabbi Akiva was able to grasp the secrets of the Torah that are there, so his eyes started tearing up. Why was he crying? It was tears of joy that came because of an overwhelming amount of light. It says in the Ara also that when Bechiyas come, it's explaining, it's from Tzedek, I think, that when the mind is overwhelmed, it expands, I think he says, and it pushes out tears. So it comes from the mind not being able to contain what it grasps, what it has in it. It can't contain it, and from that the tears come. So the tears of Mashiach are going to be the tears that come from grasping, from experiencing this high light of Atik that's going to be revealed then. Okay, this is also the reason why Chamisha Asar B'Av the minig was. What they used to do every year is that the daughters of the Yidden, or the daughters of Yerushalayim, would go out to the vineyards and they would dance in circles. Which this circle that they were dancing in is also a me'ain. It's similar to the circle that it says that the Eibishter is going to make. When Mashiach is going to come, it says in Gemara that the Eibishter is going to make a circle, a dance for the tzaddikim, and during that dance, then on this day of the 15th day of Av, the Eibishter is going to give us the highest revelations, like we see in the dance that the Eibishter is going to make for the tzaddikim, that the tzaddikim are going to go in the dance, and the Gemara says they're going to point to the Eibishter and they're going to say, this is the Eibishter to whom we have anticipated and hoped for that he will save us. This is the Eibishter who brought us salvation, and we will rejoice and be happy with his salvation. By Yetzias Mitzrayim, Taka was a revelation, but it was only one time. When Mashiach is going to come, they're going to say 2 times. In other words, it's going to be a much greater revelation. When the Yidden were on the level of tzaddikim, they said only one time. the revelation of the lower level of Havaya, which has to do to Zah. When Sheikh is going to come, then we're going to have the higher level of Bali Tshuva. The Tshuva, he can fly and Tshuva brings a doubling of what you had before. So therefore, they're going to say twice. We're going to have then the side the revelation of Havaya at the level of Zah, and side the revelation of Shem Havaya at the level of Atik. The pasuk says that we're going to rejoice and be happy with the Eibishter salvation, which the Rebbe says the Shlema that Yeshua Kadosh Baruch Hu, that comes after the Zah Sheni. We said already one time Zeh, which is the revelation of Shem Havaya of Zah. We say a second time Zeh, which is the revelation of Shem Havaya of Atik, Havaya de Le'ela. So what's Yeshua that comes after that? That's already the revelation of Pnimius Atik, which Pnimius Atik, L'gabe Chitzenius Atik is an incomparably higher madrega. So that too we will have that revelation when Mashiach comes. When Mashiach is going to come, we're also going to have the revelation of the Pnimius of Atik, the Yiratzin. This all happens speedily now. And certainly after we recited in the Haftarah of Tisha B'Av that the Eibishter salvation is close, is near. That the Yeshua of the Eibishter, which we just said, is Pnimius of Atik. He crave lava is near and coming, B'Karev Mamash, speedily and immediately. Ubagala Didan. Amen. Can you hear us? Amen. So may that be the will of the Eibishter.
Amen.
Amen. So what we have, I was thinking in Aveda, what you can take out of the Maimer is that it's Yidua that all of the Inyanim of Torah were true always. We're always true. Every part of Torah. However, not always can you reveal those secrets that are in the Torah. Maybe only Rashbi and only the great tzaddikim like the Rabbeim can be aware of those tremendous secrets. But to reveal it to everybody, you can't. It's hidden. It's too far away from us. Masha'enkein, as we near the Gula Amitzvah Shlema, so now in Toshim Lem Zayin, the Rebbe could reveal to all of us that really what's going on behind the scenes is a process of Gula, not a process of Golus and Churban. And the Rebbe is helping us train ourselves to see in the situation of Golus, before we even experience the Gula, the Rebbe is helping us train ourselves to see the Gula there already. The Gula that already started on Tisha B'Av, the Gula that already started before the Churban of the Beis HaMikdash, that we should be able to see that this is actually all just a requirement of Tshuva, that we should do the Aveda of Tshuva, which is the Aveda which we are performing during Golus, and then we could reveal the Gula that already started by Yitzias Mitzrayim, the revelations that started in the Mishkan. This is all already with us. Just in earlier generations, this Torah couldn't even be revealed. In our generation, the Rebbe could already reveal this Torah to us, that the Ma'il of Chamisha Asar B'Av isn't only Yeridet Tzorech Aliyah. No, the Ma'il of Chamisha Asar B'Av is that we reveal that which was hidden, and this is how we celebrate Chamisha Asar B'Av now already. That we already start becoming aware of the fact that we're living with Geula, it's just in a hidden way, and we start revealing it within our life. Amen.
So, Shalom, you give me the next Bible.